Okay, this is Doug Andrews, and Doug, tell us your earliest memory of the station.
Well, my earliest memory of the station was as an infant. I would that was where they that's where they took me to calm down. I mean, that was, whenever there were three women that lived together. My Aunt Kit, who was my father's sister, and my mom, and my I'm sorry, I'm not doing too well on this. My Aunt Kit and one other aunt, and they lived together on Clayton Street and maintained the house during the war years, and they would take care of me. And whenever I got fussy, they would run to the train station, and that was my playground. And the thing that was neat. I don't know if you have any memory of that whole area there. There's a map in this plastic container.
Well, you drew a map, which I have.
Oh, I did?
Yeah, it's in that article.
Oh, okay. I don't know if that's the right map. The map that showed the whole...
It's in... what? This?
Yes.
Yeah, and what I'm looking for...
Well, what I wanted to say was the whole block between Pennsylvania Avenue, between Delaware Avenue and 13th Street, and between, let me see that. Well, okay, that's not the map. Okay, there's Delaware Avenue, and there's, see, these damn maps are not historically correct.
No, they're not, because they're modern.
But anyway, between
Delaware Avenue and Union, you mean?
well, no, the park, the B&O station covered the entire block. Not the station itself, but it covered the entire block from...
Oh, I do have a map.
Are you okay?
I'm looking for the map that I did have a map.
Okay. Well,
go ahead.
God knows it'll be here someplace.
Okay. Okay, so go on. Okay, so there was
It covered.
a park.
It covered. What's that picture on the bottom of that page? Okay, that's the station. That's part of the station.
Right.
And that's another part of the station. And
okay, he's looking at that.
right. Anyway, I'm sorry, I'm just...
So the station covered the whole block.
The whole block between the Delaware Avenue and 13th Street, 14th Street, 13th Street, and between, I can't think of the numbers.
See, this is the map that you drew.
That's the map I drew, son of a gun. Okay, that whole block.
Right.
It was between North Scott Street, which was at this side of the station, and North DuPont Street, and Delaware Avenue, and West 14th Street. And that whole block was the station property. And it was beautiful. I mean, it was lots of shrubs and lots of trees, and of course it wasn't until things started to deteriorate as far as the station, so far as the railroad industry was concerned, that they started tearing down trees and tearing up shrubbery and doing all the just making it look like it wasn't pretty anymore. And anyway, so they a lot of the stuff was removed or cut back, way back. And it made it very difficult.
Well, if they tore down the station in 1960, when did they start tearing things down? Like in the 50s?
Almost immediately. I mean, the building stood there for a long time.
I talked to a guy who got bricks from there and made a patio out of them.
Bless his heart.
Wow.
I thought,
How nice.
Tell him if they're ever missing, he should check my yard.
you have some too?
No.
No.
I was to go steal his. And,
Well, he's moved since then, so he doesn't own it.
it was a nice station. It was not a big station. It was 2 stories. The main floor was at street level. All the trolleys that ran along Delaware Avenue, east and west, and then north and south.
Okay, so let me stick this in there. This is one of the buses.
Right, that's one of those ugly old buses. And the trolleys looked a lot like that with the same colors. It was a green and yellow, and not a pretty green or not a pretty yellow. And the trolleys and the buses, they plodded along the Delaware Avenue.
Well, when you came into the first floor, what did you see?
It was the sort of the. I'm trying to remember.
Were there like benches to wait?
There were benches. There was a stairway that went up to the second level.
The space was described to me as very elegant.
Oh, it was. It was very nicely done.
A high ceiling?
I wouldn't say, yeah, to a point. I mean, they didn't overdo it, but it did have a nice high ceiling in it. I'm sorry, I'm not.
Yeah, this one woman was saying that when she was a little girl, she'd go in there and she would compared it to Camden, saying Camden had a flat roof in the waiting room, where this was so elegant she felt like a princess.
Right. Well, I wouldn't have gone that far, but it was a nice. it was a nice space. It really was. And they kept it. That's one thing about Baltimore Ohio Railroad Board. They kept their properties in spotless order. I mean, they really did. And
so, did you take the train from there frequently, or
no?
No,
because by the time I started using the train for commuter service, their service had discontinued, so I couldn't do that.
So you never took the Royal Blue?
Oh, I took the Royal Blue.
Oh, you did?
From there for longer trips, but
Okay.
we never commuted on the Royal Blue.
Okay.
And oh yeah, the Royal Blue, my God, that was. In fact, I went across the country on the Royal Blue.
And you started out in this station?
Yep.
And who were you working for at the time?
I guess at the time I was working for Wanamaker's. And then I worked for Wanamaker's for 28 years. And then
And then you worked for Delaware Transit Corporation?
Delaware Transit was my next employer, and I worked for them for 20-some years. I was not a short-term employee.
Yeah. What did you do for Delaware Transit?
I was, I did planning and route planning and things of that nature, just to sort of, help them lay out routes and stuff. And
Now back to the station. When you went up the stairs, there was also like a parking lot up there you could go from.
well, yes. If you get that map out a second, and I'll try to point that out. I'm sorry, I'm doing such a lousy job here. See this whole once you got past the streets, the ground was elevated, and this whole area here was above grade, and so that when you drove into the parking lot off of DuPont Street, you went up this driveway which was all gravel, and into this flat parking lot, and that's where most of the main customers parked. And then on the other side, on the 13th Street side, Scott Street side, there was a smaller parking lot that just came up off of Scott Street, and
So if you drove, you'd enter the train that way at the top, and if you took the bus, you'd come in from the bottom.
off the street level, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And of course, the station building itself sat at street level, and then was 2 stories from that level.
Right. Were you ever aware that that station was designed by Frank Furness?
No, it was not. No, it was not. If I would, if I'd have known that, I would have been saying Hail Marys as I walked in, and yeah, I did not know that. It looked, when you talk about it though, when I remember what it looked like something he would have designed. And, he liked stations. There's no doubt about that.
Well, he had the contract to design stations for B&O, and then he got it for the Pensy.
Yeah. Yeah, he did a good job too. Anyway, so I'm trying to remember. I just can't.
So the trains that came in there were the Royal Blue would come in?
The whole mess. I mean, the B&O had a lot of traffic, both freight and passenger.
Do you remember any of the other passenger trains that came through there?
Well, it was the Champion, the Royal Blue. I can't remember the names of them offhand. If I could come across any of the old schedules, I could tell you. And,
actually, I had one schedule. So. Yeah, I had a schedule where it came from Baltimore.
yes, that was a Royal Blue.
And do you remember hearing about the holly trees?
Oh yes.
Oh, tell me about the holly trees.
The parking lot was lined in holly trees, and they took pride, and they decorated them all at Christmas time.
All around the station?
Yeah.
Oh,
And,
because this lady who remembered the inside told me there was a place called the Holly Trees just after you crossed the Susquehanna.
yes, it was their big holly tree. Excuse me. Their big holly tree was at the Susquehanna River. And when I say, big holly tree, I want to tell you, big holly tree. It was huge, and it was at the Susquehanna River, and they decorated it, and they put, in addition to lights. Of course, in those days, outdoor lights were that big.
Yeah.
And the ornaments that they put on the tree were that big, and. I wish I could find some more of that stuff or know where I put it.
Now, she said that the conductors wore holly in their lapel.
Yes, they did.
And they played Christmas carols.
Yeah.
So they carried Christmas music on the train.
They carried little whistles things with them, and they wore holly in their lapels on their hats, and in their lapels. I mean, they were very, yeah, they did, and they had quite a show there. And it was a nice station. It really was. It wasn't the grandest station in the world, but it was a nice one. Now Philadelphia had three B&O stations. I think it was 3. And they
What about Philadelphia?
what about it?
What about the stations?
It was a much bigger station, and it was 4 stories tall, but only 3 stories were open to the public,
And that was for the B&O.
yeah. Mm-hmm. Now the other station, the other passenger station, well, there were 2 more. There was the you had the B&O, and you had the Pennsylvania, and then you had the
Reading?
the Reading. Yeah, the Reading went into Wilmington also, and they were all separate railroads at that time.
So would the Reading have come to this station also?
No.
No.
No. Only if they had if there was a detour for some reason. But
What station would the Reading go to?
there was a Reading station downtown.
Really? Where
Yeah.
was that?
Oh Lord,
It was-
I don't remember. Yeah, there was a Reading station downtown.
And so if the B&O had their freight station on Water Street,
Well, that was one of their stations. Yes, they had more than one station, a freight station.
so did freight also come in?
If there was a reason to, yes.
Okay.
In fact, there was a freight house on. There was a freight house on DuPont Street. I'm sure that was what that was.
Now somebody was telling me there was a slaughterhouse near there.
A what?
A slaughterhouse?
Oh, I'm sure, because a lot of meat was processed through Wilmington.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't want to see anyone was killed, so I didn't. I didn't pay much attention to that. But there was a lot of business. The railroads were your business. I mean, what happened in cities and towns that were served by the railroad were literally served by the railroad. I mean, there were no ifs or buts about it. And the railroads, yeah, and the thing was that there'd be of course, trains were a lot louder then, because you had hardwired diesels pulling them, and none of this fancy lightweight diesel crap. It was, they were hardwired diesels were pulling them.
What was the Royal Blue?
The Royal Blue was diesel.
Okay.
It was, the B&O had no electric trains in that I know of, that I can remember.
Can you remember steam trains coming through there?
Oh God, yes. In fact, when I was growing up, that's all that did come through there.
Okay.
And the steam trains came through there. And of course, I could tell you from the whistle what train it was and where it was coming from and where it was going to. And I was even as a kid, I knew that.
Did you keep a copy of the train schedules, or did you just know?
I just knew it. I mean, you just learned those things. I mean, you knew one railroad's whistles from another, and
they don't even, well, I say they don't have whistles, they have horns now, I think.
well, yeah, they're all air horns, but they.
Right.
But yeah, the B&O was probably the most historical railroad in this area that served us.
Why historical?
Historical in that most of the railroad property was built by them, planned by them, engineered by them, designed by them, and
They had a lot of control over it.
yeah, they did.
Well, I know you're probably getting tired, so
Well,